When Emma saw the old listing online, she almost scrolled past it. A ranch for $1 single? It had to be a joke, another internet scam. But something about that faded photo, a wooden fence under a crimson sunset, a lone stable standing at the edge of a golden field, stopped her finger. There was something hauntingly peaceful about it, almost like it was calling her name. She had just left the city behind after a painful breakup and a job that drained her soul. She wasn't looking for adventure. She was looking for silence. For peace. And maybe, a reason to believe that not everything was as broken as she felt inside. The ad was short: old ranch for sale. Needs repairs. Buyer must visit in person. Price, $1. It didn't say who owned it. It didn't explain why the price was so low. And yet, 2 days later, Emma found herself driving down a dusty road, the city skyline long gone in her rearview mirror, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and curiosity. When she arrived, the ranch was even more desolate than in the picture. The signboard was half fallen, the wooden planks gray and cracked from years of neglect. Weeds grew where flowers once might have been. The gate creaked open like it hadn't been touched in years. She parked the car, stepped out, and felt the wind brush against her face, dry, warm, almost whispering something. In the distance, she could see a stable door slightly ajar. Something moved inside. "Hello?" she called out. No answer. Only the sound of the wind and a faint rustle. Emma walked slowly toward the stable, her boots crunching on dry grass. Her breath grew shallow. Every step echoed like a memory of something forgotten. When she reached the door, she pushed it gently. It groaned open, revealing the dark interior. At first, she couldn't see anything, only shafts of light filtering through the cracks. Then she heard it, a low, soft exhale. Her eyes adjusted, and she froze. Standing in the corner was a horse. A tall, chestnut-colored stallion with a mane like fire and eyes that didn't blink. It wasn't just the sight of the animal that startled her, it was the feeling. The air shifted. For a moment, she could swear the world around her went completely still. The horse didn't move. It just looked at her. Not with fear, not with curiosity, but with something deeper. Recognition. Emma's throat tightened. "Hey there," she whispered. The horse stepped forward once, its hooves echoing like a heartbeat in the quiet barn. Dust rose in the light beams. Their eyes met, and Emma felt a rush of warmth, and then, inexplicably, tears. She didn't understand why she was crying. She didn't even know this animal. Yet in its eyes, she saw something she hadn't seen in a long time: sorrow and longing. That was the moment she knew something wasn't right about this place. This wasn't just a cheap property with a forgotten horse. There was a story here, one buried beneath the silence, waiting for her to uncover it. As the horse took another slow step toward her, Emma whispered to herself, "You've been waiting for someone, haven't you?" The horse blinked once, then gently lowered its head, as if answering her. And in that fragile instant, she felt it, a strange connection she couldn't explain. But what Emma didn't know was that this horse wasn't just any horse, and that by stepping into this barn, she had just reopened a chapter of someone else's tragedy, a story that had been waiting years to be told. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. The image of the horse, those deep, almost human eyes, kept replaying in her mind. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the same thing, that silent gaze, heavy with emotion. It was as if the horse had seen things it couldn't tell, things that weighed on its soul. The next morning, she returned to the stable, carrying a bucket of water and some oats she'd picked up from the nearby town. The ranch was eerily quiet. The wooden boards creaked under her feet, and the smell of old hay hung in the air like a memory that refused to fade. "Good morning," she whispered softly, stepping inside. The horse turned its head. The sunlight spilled across its body, revealing scars she hadn't noticed before, faint white marks along its flank, like reminders of a struggle long gone. Emma's heart ached. "You've been through something, haven't you?" she said. The horse lowered its head, almost shyly. Emma smiled faintly and placed the bucket down. As it began to drink, she noticed something glinting near the stall wall, a small, rusted metal tag, half buried under old straw. She picked it up and wiped the dust away. It read, "Storm Fire, property of J. Mallory Ranch." She frowned. She had never heard that name before. She quickly checked her phone, searching for any record of J. Mallory Ranch, but nothing came up, no active listings, no old news, not even a mention. It was as if the ranch, and whoever owned it, had been erased. That's when an old truck rumbled down the dusty road and stopped at the gate. A man stepped out, tall, rugged, maybe in his late 60s, with sunburned skin and eyes that had seen too much. He leaned on the fence, watching her for a moment before calling out, "You must be the new owner." Emma hesitated. "I guess I am. Bought it for $1. The man chuckled softly, but there was no humor in his voice. "Then you bought more than you bargained for." He walked closer, his boots crunching on gravel. "I'm Hank. Used to work here. Before everything happened." Emma's pulse quickened. "What do you mean? What happened here?" Hank's gaze drifted toward the stable. "That horse, Storm Fire, he's the last one left. This place used to be alive once. Kids playing, horses running free, until the fire." "The fire?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He nodded slowly. 12 years ago. The owner, Jack Mallory, lost everything that night. The ranch, his wife, and his little girl. Storm Fire was the only one that made it out alive. They say Jack never left after that. Some folks still hear him walking the fields when the wind blows." Emma's throat tightened. "You mean, he died here?" Hank's eyes were distant. "Some say he did. Others say he just disappeared. But that horse, he stayed. Wouldn't let anyone take him. Wouldn't leave the stable. Like he was waiting for someone." Emma looked back at Storm Fire, who was now staring at her again, that same deep, knowing look. Waiting for someone. A shiver ran down her spine. When she turned back to ask Hank more, he was already walking toward his truck. "Word of advice," he said, pausing with one hand on the door. "If you start hearing whispers at night, don't answer. Some stories don't want to be told." And with that, he drove off, leaving behind a cloud of dust and a heart full of questions. Emma turned toward the barn again. The wind picked up, whistling through the broken slats. For a split second, she thought she heard something, a voice, faint and trembling, coming from the rafters above. "Help him," she froze. "Who's there?" Silence. Only the horse, still watching her. Her hands trembled as she whispered, "What are you trying to tell me?" The horse's ears flicked forward, and for the briefest moment, its gaze shifted toward the far end of the barn, a boarded-up door Emma hadn't noticed before. Something inside told her, that was where the real story began. The light was fading when Emma finally stood in front of that old, nailed-shut door at the far end of the barn. The wooden boards were warped from time, splintered, and blackened in some places, as if fire had once licked across them and then vanished. She ran her fingers over the burn marks, feeling the history buried in every crack. "Storm Fire," she whispered, glancing at the horse. He stood perfectly still, his head turned toward her, breathing softly, as if he knew exactly what she was about to do. Her curiosity fought with her fear. Hank's warning still echoed in her head, "Don't answer the whispers." But something deep inside her, something stronger than fear, pushed her forward. Maybe it was empathy. Maybe it was destiny. She grabbed a rusty crowbar from a nearby toolbox and wedged it under the boards. The first nail screeched as it came loose, the sound echoing through the empty barn like a cry from the past. One by one, she pried them out until the door gave way with a slow, painful groan. Dust filled the air. The smell hit her first, old smoke and something metallic, like forgotten tears. She held her phone up as a flashlight and stepped inside. The room was small. A few broken shelves. A half-melted lantern. And then, she saw it. A charred photo frame, lying face down on the floor. She picked it up, wiped away the soot, and froze. It was a family portrait. A man with kind eyes and a little girl sitting on his shoulders, both smiling proudly in front of the very same ranch. Behind them stood a woman, gentle, graceful, holding Stormfire's reins. Emma's stomach turned. This was Jack Mallory's family. She looked closer. There were scorch marks along the little girl's face, the photo half-burned at the edges. And written faintly on the back, barely visible under the ash, was a single word, promise. Her heart started to race. She felt dizzy, as if the air itself had become heavier. Then the wind outside shifted. The barn doors rattled. Stormfire let out a soft whinny, a nervous, trembling sound that didn't fit his calm nature. Emma stepped back from the photo, the light from her phone flickering. "Okay, calm down," she whispered to herself. "It's just the wind." But then, she heard it again. A faint voice. Not outside. Inside the room. He kept his promise. Emma's blood ran cold. She spun around, the flashlight shaking in her hand. No one there. Only dust motes swirling through the beam. The horse stomped once in the stable, as if reacting to something unseen. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice trembling. No reply. Just silence. And then, barely audible, another whisper, "He saved me," her heart thudded painfully in her chest. "Who did?" she asked, though part of her didn't want the answer. The light flickered again, and in that split second of darkness, she thought she saw a faint outline near the wall. A small figure, no taller than a child, standing in the shadows. Emma froze. The shape didn't move. It didn't breathe. And yet she could feel it watching her. When the light steadied again, the figure was gone. Only the faint smell of burnt wood remained. Emma backed out slowly, clutching the photo frame like a lifeline. When she stepped back into the stable, Stormfire was restless now, shifting his weight and snorting softly, his ears pinned back. "Shoo, it's okay," she said, placing a hand on his neck. But her own hand was shaking. That night, she sat on the porch, the stars bright over the empty ranch. The air felt heavier than before. Somewhere in the distance, she thought she heard hooves on gravel, but when she looked, the fields were empty. Then her phone buzzed. A notification from an unknown number. The message read, "Don't open that room again." No name. No number. Just those words. Emma's hands went cold. She looked back toward the barn. The door she had opened was now closed again. The following morning, Emma woke up to a strange silence. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that feels like the world is holding its breath. Even the birds seemed to have vanished from the sky. She stepped outside, the dew still clinging to the grass, and froze. The stable door was open. She was sure she had locked it the night before. Her stomach tightened as she hurried toward it. Inside, Stormfire stood still in the same corner, but his eyes were different this time. Wilder, restless, almost pleading. His mane was tangled, his breathing uneven. "Hey, easy," she whispered, stepping closer. But the horse backed away, stomping his hoof. Something was wrong. His gaze wasn't on her, it was fixed on the same old door at the far end of the barn. The one she had pried open. Her throat went dry. The boards she had nailed back last night were gone. The door stood slightly ajar. Emma's heart pounded. "No," she whispered. "I closed you." She pushed the door open again. The room looked the same, dark, cold, heavy with the scent of burnt wood. But the photo frame she'd left on the shelf was now on the floor. And next to it, a small stuffed toy horse, singed at the edges. She knelt down, her hands trembling. It looked handmade, stitched with care, one button eye missing. The moment she touched it, a faint whisper filled the air. "Daddy promised he'd come back." Emma jerked her hand away, breathing fast. The voice was that of a little girl, fragile, sad, almost hopeful. Stormfire whinnied loudly from the stable, stamping the ground. Emma ran back out, her heart racing. The horse was sweating, trembling, staring straight past her toward the open field. And then she heard it. The sound of footsteps, slow, deliberate, crunching over dry grass. She turned, but there was no one. Just the empty ranch, the golden field stretching into silence. "Who's there?" she shouted, her voice echoing. No answer. Only the wind. Then, faintly, she saw movement near the fence, a man's silhouette, standing perfectly still. Broad shoulders, hat tipped low. For a heartbeat, it looked as if he was watching her. And then, just like that, he was gone. She stumbled back toward the barn, panic rising. "What's happening here?" she whispered. She tried calling Hank, but there was no signal. The phone screen flickered, static for a moment, then the same message appeared again, though she hadn't opened her messages. "He's still here." Emma's knees went weak. She turned toward Stormfire. "Who?" she whispered. "Who's still here?" The horse made a low sound, almost mournful, and stepped closer to her. For the first time, she noticed the brand mark on his neck, faint but clear. M for Mallory," she murmured. Her gaze drifted back toward the house at the far edge of the property, the one she hadn't dared to enter yet. Its windows were shattered, the roof half collapsed. And yet, as the wind shifted, she could swear she saw a flicker of light in one of the windows, like someone had just lit a lantern. She took a deep breath, fighting the urge to run. "If there's something you want me to find," she said to the air, "I'll find it." That night, she packed a small flashlight, grabbed her jacket, and walked toward the house. Stormfire neighed loudly behind her, pacing in the stable as if trying to stop her. But Emma didn't turn back. The front door groaned as she pushed it open. Dust fell from the ceiling. The smell of smoke was stronger here, mixed with decay and loneliness. She raised her light, the wallpaper was burned, furniture overturned. On the wall, faint words had been scrawled in ash, "Don't let the promise die." Her heart stopped. "Jack Mallory," she whispered. A floorboard creaked behind her. She spun around, but no one was there. Only the faint shadow of a man passing across the hallway, gone before she could blink. The light flickered. The air turned icy. Then came a voice, low and filled with grief, "I stayed, because I couldn't leave her." Emma's breath caught in her throat. "Jack," she whispered. The floor groaned. Somewhere in the house, a door slammed shut on its own. Outside, Stormfire neighed again, louder, desperate, almost as if calling out to someone. Emma ran toward the window and looked out. In the moonlight, the horse was no longer alone. Standing beside him was the silhouette of a man, his hand resting gently on the horse's mane. And this time, she knew it wasn't her imagination. Emma didn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the burned writing on the wall, "Don't let the promise die," and Jack Mallory's voice whispering through the empty halls. When the first light of dawn crept through the clouds, she decided she couldn't ignore it anymore. Whatever had happened on this land, it was begging to be understood. The ranch was silent when she stepped outside, except for Stormfire's uneasy breathing. The horse was pacing inside his pen, ears flicking toward the old house as if hearing something Emma couldn't. His nostrils flared each time she looked away, like he was warning her not to go back inside. But she had to. She returned to the house, flashlight in hand, dust swirling around her boots. The deeper she walked, the colder it got. Her breath came out in thin white clouds. At the end of the hallway stood a heavy wooden door she hadn't noticed before, half hidden behind a fallen beam. Its handle was blackened, the wood warped from the fire. She hesitated, hand trembling, then turned the knob. The door creaked open into what used to be a child's bedroom. The walls were scorched, the ceiling half collapsed. A small bed still stood in the corner, the blanket untouched by time. On the nightstand sat a cracked snow globe, its water long gone but its figure still standing, a little girl and her father, holding hands beside a horse. Emma's throat tightened. She stepped closer. On the wall above the bed, drawn in charcoal or ash, were stick figures, a man, a woman, a little girl, and a horse with a heart drawn over it. Underneath, written in uneven letters, "Daddy says he'll come back when the stars are bright." Tears filled her eyes. She could feel it, the night of the fire, the panic, the screams. She could almost hear the girl's voice calling for her father. The floor beneath her creaked suddenly. She looked down, the boards were charred, one plank slightly lifted. Carefully, she pried it up. Beneath it was a metal box, blackened but still intact. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside were old photos, a silver locket, and a single page of a letter. The handwriting was rushed but clear. "If someone finds this, tell my Lily that Daddy tried. Tell her I didn't run. I went back for her, but the fire, the rest was burned away." Emma gasped, clutching the letter. "He didn't abandon her," she whispered. "He tried to save her." A sudden gust of cold wind blew through the doorway, snuffing out her flashlight. She froze. In the darkness, she heard the faint sound of hooves, slow, steady, echoing across the floorboards. Stormfire? No, the sound was inside the house. Her pulse thundered in her ears. The smell of smoke thickened. The walls began to flicker with a faint orange glow. And then, through the haze, she saw him. Jack Mallory, his figure faint, translucent, standing by the bed. His face was worn and sorrowful, his hands reaching toward the wall where the drawings were. Emma whispered, "You didn't fail. She knew you tried." Jack turned his head slowly toward her. His lips didn't move, but she heard his voice all the same, clear as the wind, "I can't leave, not until she knows." Before Emma could answer, a sound from outside made her spin around, Stormfire, kicking his stall and whinnying desperately. She ran to the door, heart hammering, but when she looked back one last time, Jack was gone. She stepped out into the daylight, gasping for air. Stormfire was drenched in sweat, his mane wild. He wasn't just frightened, he was calling for her to follow. His gaze darted toward the old oak tree behind the house, the one blackened by lightning years ago. Emma ran after him, the wind tearing through her hair. As she approached the tree, she saw the ground disturbed, fresh soil, uneven, as if someone had been digging there not long ago. Her knees hit the dirt as she brushed away the loose earth. Something hard scraped against her fingers. A locket. Silver, heart-shaped, the same one from the photo in Jack's letter box. She opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a picture, Jack and Lily, smiling. And behind it, a single word carved into the metal, together. The ground went still. The wind stopped. And somewhere deep in the fields, the air shimmered, like heat over pavement. And a faint, glowing silhouette of a man and a child appeared beside Stormfire. The horse lowered his head, calm again. Emma didn't move. The moment was heavy, sacred, like the earth itself was exhaling after years of holding its breath. Then, slowly, the light faded. Stormfire snorted softly, then walked toward Emma and nudged her shoulder. She reached up and touched his face. "I found them," she whispered. "You can rest now." But Stormfire didn't rest. He turned, looking out toward the horizon, as if something else was still unfinished. And in that instant, Emma understood, this wasn't over. Whatever promise had bound them to this land, it wasn't done with her yet. The sun dipped low behind the hills, painting the sky in streaks of amber and red. Emma stood by the oak tree, the silver locket still warm in her hand. Stormfire grazed quietly a few steps away, but his ears twitched at every whisper of wind. There was peace in the air, but also something unresolved, like a melody missing its last note. Emma turned toward the ranch house, now bathed in twilight. For the first time since she arrived, she didn't feel fear. Only an unshakable pull, as if the land itself was asking her to listen. She knew she wasn't done here. Jack Mallory had shown her the truth, but not the end. That night, she didn't go to bed. She sat by the barn, the lantern glowing beside her, and spoke softly into the dark. "Jack. I found the locket. I know what you did. But there's something you still want me to see, isn't there? The silence around her stretched thin. Then Stormfire raised his head sharply, nostrils flaring. His gaze fixed on the open field beyond the fence. Emma followed his line of sight, and her breath caught. Far out in the meadow, a faint orange light shimmered. Like fire. But it wasn't wild or destructive. It was soft, pulsing, almost rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Emma stood, heart racing, and walked toward it. Stormfire followed, his hooves silent on the dry earth. As she stepped closer, she saw it, the ghostly outline of the barn, whole and untouched, glowing in the night. The way it must have looked before the fire. And inside, she could hear voices, laughter, a child's giggle, a man humming an old tune. Emma froze, tears welling up. She was looking at the past. Then, from within the glowing vision, came a scream. The sound of crackling fire. The light flared bright and hot. Emma saw Jack running into the flames, calling for his daughter, Lily. The child's small shadow reached toward him, but the ceiling collapsed between them. The horse, Stormfire, broke through his stall, charging through the smoke to drag Jack back by his shirt collar. Emma saw it all, helpless, heart pounding. And then she understood. Stormfire had saved Jack. But Jack never forgave himself for surviving when his daughter didn't. That was the promise, the vow that chained his spirit here. The vision flickered. Jack turned, his ghostly face etched in agony. For the first time Emma met his eyes directly. "You did save her," she whispered. "Maybe not her body, but her spirit. She's been waiting, Jack. She's not angry anymore." The wind picked up, swirling ashes around her feet. Jack's expression softened. Behind him, a faint figure appeared, the little girl, Lily, holding the toy horse Emma had found. She smiled, small and pure, then reached for her father's hand. Jack looked at her, then back at Emma. "Thank you," his voice echoed, faint but warm. He placed his hand on Stormfire's neck. The horse bowed his head deeply, as if in farewell. A golden light spread from that touch, wrapping around them all. The flames turned to stars, rising into the night sky until they were gone. The field was silent again. Emma fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. The air felt lighter, cleaner. For the first time since she'd come, the ranch didn't feel haunted. It felt whole. The next morning, the world seemed new. The birds returned, their songs echoing through the open fields. The breeze was warm, carrying the scent of wildflowers. Stormfire stood by the fence, calm and proud, his eyes brighter than ever. Emma walked up to him and smiled. "They're gone now, aren't they?" she said softly. The horse snickered, brushing his nose against her shoulder. She decided that day to stay for good. To rebuild the ranch, not as a monument to tragedy, but as a sanctuary for healing. A place for animals no one wanted, and for people searching for something they'd lost. She called it Promise Ranch. Every evening, as the sun set, Emma would stand by the oak tree and listen to the wind. Sometimes, she swore she could still hear the faint echo of hooves, the laughter of a little girl, and a man's voice whispering thanks. And Stormfire? He never left her side. But one night, months later, Emma woke to the sound of hoofbeats fading into the distance. She ran outside, heart pounding, only to find the stable door wide open and Stormfire gone. Out in the field, under the moonlight, she saw him one last time, standing by the oak tree, looking up at the stars. For a heartbeat, she saw them too, Jack and Lily, waiting for him. Stormfire lifted his head, let out a soft cry, and then, the three of them vanished into the night. Emma stood there, smiling through tears. The wind brushed past her cheek, gentle as a goodbye. From that day on, she never felt alone. Because some promises, she realized, don't die with time or fire, they live on in the hearts that remember them. And as the sun rose over Promise Ranch, Emma whispered, "Rest easy, all of you. You're finally home."